you've been through this, and
Yeah.
I'm going to point out that Betsy had a daughter who was addicted to heroin, and you're going to talk about that a little bit. And unfortunately, the heroin overtook the whole situation.
Yes.
4 years ago?
Almost 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she did attend spiritual
I
gardens.
mean, the
for a
actual
short
vetting
time.
process, to think that someone might be high, that's not a scientific, I mean, it'll give you an indication that maybe something's going on, but it doesn't really say much.
But like Martine came from
Martine being
Rushford.
your daughter.
Martine's my daughter. She came from Rushford from being in detox for 30 days. She went right from there to
I see.
spiritual gardens. So she had been clean for the 30 days when she went in there and started the program.
And motivated to stay clean
We thought,
at that point.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What are the backgrounds of the people that you service? I mean,
Well, a lot of them come right from a rehab. So we have relationships with rehabs all over the country. And if someone has completed a 28-day or a 6-week rehab, but they're not quite ready to go home, go back to the old neighborhood or their hometown, then they might come to us.
But when you say background too, this epidemic does not discriminate. This includes everybody of every race, everybody of every age.
every economic status?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference if you were brought up in private schools and the best of everything or struggling for everything you got. It touches everybody. I found that out with talk after Martine passed away. I thought I was all alone in this fight for her life. And the day she passed away, people came out of the woodwork to tell me their son, their husband, their brothers
People in the
are
immediate family?
all, no, of strangers came out because they, they were alone also, and they wanted to talk to somebody that struggled with this. And I really thought that there wasn't this epidemic. I really thought that there was a handful of them, but
Why do you think somebody gets to that stage? What are the steps along the way for someone to get to heroin? I mean, to me, heroin's a scary, scary thing.
Well,
You
that
hear
al-
about people dying on bad drugs, and you know,
it's
I mean,
cheap.
why would you get to? What happens prior to that? What leads up to that?
Well, very often it starts with painkillers. Oxycontin, other opiate painkillers. They're prescribed for a back injury or some kind of pain. And a certain personality, an addictive personality, will get addicted to the pain medication.
like immediately, some people.
Immediately, so that they, with an addict, it's always more. An addict will always want more. When the prescription
what?
more
high.
more high, more drugs, whatever it is. When the
So
prescription
the fact that
runs
it's a
out,
scary experience leading up to it, it is scary. I mean, I think when you hear, when you listen to the media and what's happening, I guess New London County has a lot of that going on. Bad drugs on the street and people
Yes,
dying
sir.
from it. When you know that, the want to be higher overcomes the fear.
an addict
of the
doesn't
use?
have any choice. An addict needs to get high. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you know that there are bad drugs out there, but an addict, that's why an addict is an addict. They lose the choice whether to use or not. I also want to mention that as far as the painkillers go, very often a prescription will run out and they'll start buying pills on the street. They're readily available. And I don't mean the street corner. They're available everywhere. But they're very...
You don't have to go to New Haven to get these drugs. It's right here in Guilford.
Your neighbor, for example, in the high schools, there are drug pushers in every high school. So you start complaining about the price of the pills. They might be $80 a pill. That's a lot. So the person selling you the pills will say, why don't you use heroin instead? The high will cost you 25% of the cost of the pills. Why don't you try it? And so the progression from pills to heroin is very common, very common. Much more than when I was a kid, they used to say marijuana was a gateway drug to heroin.
Is it?
I would say that painkillers are much more gateway drugs to heroin than marijuana. That's a fact. It is a
But
fact.
is marijuana a gateway to pills?
I don't think so.
What do you think?
I don't know. I go back and forth on that.
What was your daughter's experience? Do you know?
She did start with marijuana, and then I don't know. She went away to college, and when she came back, we had to take her back because she, out in California, became a full-blown addict. She kept it a secret. I don't know a whole lot. She kept it. She was very private. She was very ashamed of it. When she did come back, she got herself in a methadone program that I didn't even know she was on. I didn't even know she was struggling with it. She went and got help and tried to do it without telling me.
And the methadone program was to counteract what?
They
What was
put
she
her on
that?
At that point, it was the oxys. It was, and I got very angry about that she didn't come to me because in my belief, and I don't know if I'm right, but I believe it's much easier to get off oxys than it is to get off methadone or heroin.
I would think it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So, now, do you think your daughter's experience? I just, in my mind, and I know so little about this, that it just seems to me that anybody that's on pills or heroin or anything in between, at some point in their life, was also smoking pot.
yeah, I don't
But
think
you
that's
don't see
true
that
anymore.
as a
There's an
stepping stone.
epidemic of people my age that start becoming addicts because they get hooked on. They get some kind of pain. The doctor prescribes these opiates, and they're addicted.
Well, I'm sure that's one example of how
there's a
somebody
lot of
moves
people
on.
of
But
that.
there's people that go on pills for other reasons. It's a party drug, isn't it? Isn't it something that the peer group is involved in? Isn't it something that is a social environment that somebody wants to participate in?
Well, the people that we're talking about are not social. It's like an alcoholic is not a social drinker. The addict is a different personality.
The alcoholic, but he might start out in a social environment and then become an alcoholic.
Yes, it could be. All right, so all of this is not a science. And I want to back up a minute and say that I don't have any training in addiction counseling. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Everything I know is from my own experience. So my opinions come from my own experience. I believe that addiction it's a genetic condition. I believe that this runs in families, not all the time, but very often.
Some people can drink and not get drunk,
Exactly.
and others become alcoholics.
That's exactly right. And I think alcoholism is a disease, and it's a genetic disease, and it's recognized by the American Medical Association as a disease. It qualifies for insurance payments. One of the things that
I was going to get into that. We're going to get into funding now.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to. I think that it's very important to make the point that this is not a moral issue. That addiction is a disease. Alcoholism, drug addiction, it's a disease. There's been a tremendous stigma against drug addicts over the years. Drug addicts are bad, they're weak, they're degenerates, they're criminals.
And that's why people don't reach out,
And
because there's such shame on it that you don't tell people, you hide it, you try your best to get the help you need, but that's why we're speaking out. That's why we're here to promote this epidemic, because addiction is killing our children.
Well, this is a good opportunity for you to raise awareness and maybe create some level of tolerance out there.
Absolutely.
That's really what you hopefully at the end of the day that comes out of a program like this, or other programs that are taking place where people are educated and they begin to understand and they have a personal experience, which makes it really brings the whole issue home.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Guilford. People think it doesn't happen here in Guilford, and my daughter
But it happened.
grew up her whole life in Guilford. It's not like we moved here 10 years ago.
Yeah.
30 years we lived here, and
What do you think? Do you think this? You implied at least that some of this became more of an issue for her when she went away to school in California. Do you think any of that existed when she was in Guilford?
yeah, that
Okay.
she.
So let's
got
talk
in-
about her peer group. Did you know her friends who she
I
was
knew
hanging
all
out
her
with?
friends, and
Any
she,
other issues with the friends that you know of?
Well, she got caught smoking marijuana in high school, and immediately she didn't do any sleepovers for the rest of her years in high school, and she was home every night. She was captain of the hockey team. She was a athlete. She was a great athlete. She was very kind and very outgoing, and she had no fear. Sometimes I think that was part of it. She didn't have a fear of trying new things. So much when she got off the methadone, she was finally free again for a while. She didn't phase her. She went to Rwanda and volunteered there for 3 months all by herself.
I read that in her obituary.
She had no fears.
What was the group, the association that she went with? Do you know?
Global Volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah.